I'd love to hear your thoughts. Why? Because the Chief Inspector of Schools has accused parents of trying to medicate away their children's hyperactive behavior. You know what it is. Johnny won't behave himself. Well, he must have something. Let's go to the doctor and see if we can prescribe something. That's what's being suggested by the Chief Inspector of Schools. The head of OFTSED, Amanda Spielman, was responding to news that the use of Ritalin and similar drugs has doubled in the last 10 years. The National Institute for Health and Care Excellence estimates that about 500,000 school children, 5%, 1 in 20, I'll break these numbers down any way you want, have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Joining me now is Alastair Yates. He's the chair of the ADHD Richmond support group. His 15-year-old son, who takes medication for ADHD. Just getting all your details down and straight. Alistair, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Eddie.
Now, look, you may think, oh, goodness sake, why are we having this conversation again? We've been having it for the last decade. Well, not, you know, who feels it knows it. You're clearly going through something, so I want you to be patient with us. If you're going through something, you understand it in a way that other people do not and cannot, and therefore, I may well annoy you, but I am asking you questions because I am interested on behalf of the people listening. Is that okay?
And we'll be very, very happy to answer every single question you've got, Eddie.
Well, why don't you just discipline your child properly, and why have you medicated your child then?
Oh, I wish I could, Eddie. Look, let's start at the point that the World Health Organization now recognizes this thing called ADHD as a neurodevelopmental condition. So it's a serious condition, Eddie, recognized by all of the consultant psychiatrists across the United Kingdom. It's not that we're medicating as parents. We're not medicating the children. It's the consultant psychiatrists who are deciding that these children need extra help. The thing is with ADHD, Eddie, as well, is that it's a condition which has lots of other conditions attached to it, like autism. Now, that might surprise a lot of your listeners, that 50% of children with ADHD also have autism. Now, as you know, autism doesn't get this black name that ADHD seems to get. Everybody sort of sympathizes with autism, but for some reason, people just think that kids with ADHD are just naughty kids, and they are not, Eddie.
Well, I suppose if I'm in a supermarket behind a child with autism, I may well find with the invisible disability instinctively that I think that's just another naughty kid. So it is on the same spectrum. So here's the thing then, you know, ordinarily, and I have been doing these subjects for 10 or 15 years now, you won't be surprised to hear, with varying degrees of success in terms of people's acceptance of it as a condition. But this is not, you know, Paul in Pimlico or Jerry in wherever. This is the Chief Inspector, don't you know, Alistair, of schools. This is a person who is hugely and highly qualified, who goes into schools, who has people under her who go into schools, who talks to teachers, who talks to government departments about what is happening, who I imagine, and I might be wrong, and you'll help me with this, has a kind of a finger on the pulse of what's happening in a way that Joe Bloggs can't. And here is what she is saying. Okay, she is saying that she thinks that parents are trying to medicate away their children's hyperactive, behavior. Almost 1.5 million prescriptions for the drugs used to tackle the condition, and that's doubled. Yeah. That's doubled over a decade. So it means that somebody like me is forced to look upon it in a different way. The child doesn't go to bed at time, doesn't have any discipline, has fizzy drinks and eats unhealthy food. Of course you're going to see bad behavior. Let's discuss.
All right, Eddie. Okay, you've mentioned a few things there. I mean, first of all, this is a neurodevelopmental condition, as I say, and the reason there are more diagnoses and therefore double the amount of medication that's going on is simply because teachers in the schools, and I'm really surprised surprised at Amanda Spielman, and in fact I challenge her to come across to our group and meet our parents and put what she has said to these parents, and they will tell her without doubt exactly what is going on with their children. It's not the parents, as I say, it's the teachers in the schools who are recognizing now more and more ADHD. They're being trained about ADHD. They're being trained to spot it. So in the past, when I was at school, I might have been a lad who couldn't concentrate. I couldn't sit still. But ADHD wasn't known about then, and we're learning more and more about it every year, Eddie. So the point is that it's now being recognized. There's more awareness of ADHD. Therefore, more children are going through the system via their GPs to the CAMS, which is the Children's and Adolescent Mental Health Service. They then must see a consultant psychiatrist. And Eddie, I have to tell you, and I have to tell your listeners, that it's not easy. By any means, it's not easy to get an ADHD diagnosis. The assessment itself, you might have to wait up to 2 years in certain parts of the country. Around here, you're expected probably to wait about 6 months before you can even get to see a consultant to actually talk about the ADHD. The point is, even before you get to that point, Eddie, you have to go through an extremely complicated list of questions from school, because school are involved as well. It's not just the parents. So you have to be able to prove that the child has a difficulty in two places, two environments, i.e. school and at home, and over a 6-month period. We're not talking about a child who, might just misbehave one day, might be in a supermarket, as you say, another day, belting off. It has to be every day. This child has to have a really clinical problem, which is what ADHD is.
Okay, so let me jump in. And first of all, thank you for the way that you're talking about this. You're talking about it with passion, but you're not, we're not getting personal with this, because I have, of course, attempted to get Amanda on the show. Of course I have, yeah? And I haven't been able to do that. And I am a parent, so I am interested in these things. And I know I have lots of listeners who have challenges, and any help that we can give them, then we should afford them that. So let me say thank you. But let me point out again, sir, that I am not talking about some easily dismissed, uneducated, loudmouth on the street. That is not who we are talking about. No. We are talking about the person who is charged with looking after the standards and, witnessing what's happening in classrooms, talking to teachers, to governors, to people on the PTA, to the head teachers, to the teachers. That is who we're talking about. Let me give you some more of what she said. Yeah. Amanda said it was not possible that the increase in prescription for the so-called chemical koshes could be representative of the number of young people actually suffering from the disorder. She also went to say, if there are that many behavioral problems, what is that telling us about what ought to be preventable? Is it located in the family? Is it located in the education or in the peer group? So she's not saying, I don't believe, and I don't want to do the kind of red top stuff with this. Mm-hmm. She's not saying, I don't believe the condition in and of itself exists. She is saying, I am worried about the rise over this period of time and what it means.
Yeah, so are we. We're really concerned about the numbers of children who are going through the system. So there is obviously, Eddie, something wrong with the system. I'm not going to start talking about education at any great length. We could be here for the rest of your program in terms of what is available in schools at the moment and, the conformity that these children have to go through. The children with ADHD just can't be that normal child. They'd love to be. My boy himself wants to be, just wants to hang out with his friends and be normal. Unfortunately, he hasn't got that normal brain, Eddie. And I will come back to Amanda in a moment, because I do want to challenge what she said, because clearly she is not up to date with her research, and I wonder whether she's even possibly been misquoted, Eddie. I don't know. But what I've taken
it like I have to, okay? Because if I put something out there, it's judged differently. I'm taking it from several different sources.
No, sure. No, I'm sorry. I wasn't saying that you probably misquoted her. I'm just wondering whether she's been misunderstood in what she was trying to get across. If she really thinks and believes what she has said, then it's terribly troublesome, for somebody in her position. And as I say,
we're going to get there. Yes, okay. Yeah, because that is the point, isn't it? If that's the person who's charged with respecting, appreciating, observing, and that's the attitude she has, which I'm taking is completely at odds with your experience and the members of your group, then that is troubling.
Well, it is, and I don't really, honestly, I truthfully don't understand where she's coming from, and I would love to meet her. She can come across, she can come and talk to us any time, because I don't understand that she can believe that. Her research, certainly, Eddie, does not tie in with what is being said by NICE, which is the organisation here in the UK which looks after all medical conditions and problems, ADHD being one of them. It totally goes against what they're saying about ADHD and the numbers of children, and why we now know there are more and more children being recognised with this problem.
Let's stop doing a macro for a second. We'll end with that. But I think that I've been incredibly rude. I've invited you onto my show, and I've talked about your son without asking you about your experience. Just bear with me 1 second, Alistair, because I'd like other people. I'm on the phone with Alastair Yates. He's chair of the ADHD Richmond support group. His 15-year-old son takes medication for ADHD. We're speaking today because there is a lady who's a hugely important lady. She is supposed to be in charge of looking at our schools, and she has, I suppose, thrown a cloud over whether or not we should be issuing quite as many drugs to our children for this condition as we have been. She talks about it being a behavioural decision. She talks about it not being a cure-all, a panacea, something that these children may well have to stay on for the rest of their lives. So, yeah, I do want your opinions of ADHD, but that won't get as high a profile, and it never will, as the person who's going through it. What's happening with your child? Is it difficult to get that child the kind of treatment that Alistair's been talking about in regards to getting a psychiatrist? Maybe the problem was highlighted by a teacher. Maybe you can say, at first we thought it was just he or she wasn't behaving properly, and we tried the discipline, and we tried the you can have this and we can't, and then we just couldn't cope. How has Ritalin or any other drug like that actually helped you in what you're doing? I'd love to hear your stories, because that's the way the first hour lives. We pick on a story that we think impacts on the lives of a lot of people, and a lot of people have an opinion on, and we invite you to phone the show. The number is 0800 731 2000, 0800 731 2000. You can text 81333, starting your message with the word London, and emails to eddie.nestor@bbc.co.uk. So, Alistair, let's talk about you, if you don't mind, right?
No.
Because sometimes I get carried away, and I'm talking about the condition and the children in Japan and how it hasn't been and I've got you here. So when did you first realise that there was a challenge?
Oh, Eddie, this goes right back to kindergarten for us. He couldn't sit on the quiet mat. We were getting pulled in all the time by them, sort of saying, "Oh, there's something wrong." Then we went into primary, all the way through primary, and I kid you not, Eddie, we would be seeing the head or the deputy head probably 3 times a week at least for different issues, problems that have arisen during the day. Okay. We knew that there was something wrong.
Stop there, because you know there's something wrong. Let me ask you the horrible question, Alistair, and I think we've built up a relationship now that you will understand what I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
How did you know it wasn't you, that the parameters that you'd put in place as a parent were just rubbish? How did you know that you were doing just an awful job? How do you know for certain, how did you know, please excuse me, for certain that there was just something wrong?
Well, okay, I'll give you a quick answer to that. The lady who founded our group has twins. One of them had ADHD, the other one didn't. That's interesting, isn't it? Mm. And here, he was brought up in a loving environment. I have 2 other children who've done extremely well, gone on to do great jobs. They do not have ADHD or any other conditions, as far as I know. No, Eddie, this is about dopamine in the brain. That's what ADHD is. And just, I'm not going to bore you with it, but just very quickly, you've got the right levels of dopamine in your brain so you can be a radio presenter. I hope I've got the right amount of dopamine in my brain, okay? But the reason that we give our children medication is to increase their dopamine.
No, I'm not interested in that bit anymore, Alistair.
Oh,
I can't, because I've done that bit. And that bit of it doesn't help anybody. That bit is the political side. When they call you in to reference the committee on Ritalin for children, and you can do that bit. For me and you as two dads, I want to do, how did you know that boy that you loved, how did you know? You just tell me what he did, how you knew that something wasn't right. Let's do that bit, please.
All right. Well, he was a pain in the proverbials, Eddie, to be quite honest, and he still is. You know, I mean, it's hard work, Eddie. I mean, I know a fair bit about this damn thing called ADHD, but I tell you what, he has got other conditions as well, because as I told you, there are other comorbidities to ADHD. He's got oppositional defiant disorder. He's also got some autism, which is social and communication difficulties. So, you know, these parents, like me, are not just dealing with this damn thing called ADHD. It's hard work.
No, I know. And what you're using to strengthen your argument, for my listeners, lessens your argument. Because it just sounds like you're going, oh, this label, this label, this label, this label. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I do understand that. And I tell you what, Eddie, it took us a long time, and it does take most parents, I would say, a long time to come round to wanting to stick that label on their child. We didn't want that. We really didn't. And I tell you what, we also did not want to drug our child. No parent wants to drug their child. It took us a year, Eddie, to come round to that decision after taking all the therapies being offered. We tried everything that we could before we went back to the psychiatrist and said, look, we've tried all this. And he said, well, the only thing you can do now is try some medication. You know what, Eddie? As soon as he took that medication, because it was a stimulant medication, and it worked straight away.
Tell me how it worked.
It changed. It changed our lives. It changed him. It meant that he could sit in school. The teacher...
Because he's drugged up.
No, he's not drugged up. He was on a very low dosage, so the psychiatrist makes sure that they get the right level for the weight and the height of the child, so they're not over-drugged, Eddie. They really are not. That would be impossible. It's all very, very carefully calculated. So he was, all it was doing, and that's why I mentioned the dopamine, all it was doing was enabling him to carry out his executive functioning. In other words, to be able to concentrate and to be able to focus just for that school time. We didn't do it, and we still don't do it at the weekends. So he only has to take his medication, or most children do, during the school week, so they can sit down and get through and listen to the teacher. That's all it's about.
I'm looking at some of the side effects here, and before I get into the side effects, and you know what they are, I have to tell you what they are, but you know, sometimes they act out of character: severe migraines, increased heart rate, jittery, anxiety. Yeah. The real worry, and this is as a dad now, forget about the radio bit for a second. Right. Yeah. The real worry I have about it is that the boy might be on it for the rest of his life.
Well, Eddie, that's possibly true. Do you know, because it doesn't go away, this thing, ADHD. No, they learn to manage it, sure. But to answer your point, there are these horrible side effects. Most of the children on methylphenidate, which is a Ritalin you've been talking about, Ritalin is just a brand name. So there's another one called Medicanet, which is mainly used in this country. So it's methylphenidate, and obviously some children can't take it. You know, if I took this stuff, I'm quite sure I'd be sick or something would happen to me. So they can't sleep at night sometimes. It affects their diet. So, you know, at lunchtime at school, they won't be able to go in with the rest of the children and have their lunch. It's a horrible thing, Eddie. It really is. I still don't want my child to be taking this, but if he came on the phone to you now, he would say it just helps him to be able to get through the day like a normal kid.
What hopes and aspirations do you have for the boy?
It changes, Eddie. You know, he's
great answer.
Because of his conditions, he's not in school at the moment. He is being taught on a one-to-one basis because he has to be, because he still can't sit in a class of other children because he gets so distracted.
You paying for that, or did the local authority give you what in old language used to be a statement?
Yeah, he has a statement, of course, and in fact it's only just recently being transferred into an education, health and care plan. And under that, our local authority is providing some teaching for him. He only gets 12 hours a week, but at least he's getting something. I used to think he might pass some GCSEs. I sort of hope he does. I think he might go to college if he gets a couple of GCSEs perhaps. He's a very bright boy, and I should say that a lot of these children, in fact I would say the vast majority of children with ADHD and certainly autism, as you know, are very intelligent people. It's just that they can't get it together like the rest of us.
Alistair, I'm sorry. I know that you didn't really come on to get that kind of conversation, but you've done more than maybe any guest I've had over the last 15 years to tell me what it was like and how, as a parent, you've had to do that which you didn't want to do. And I appreciate your contribution, and I wish you and your family the very best of luck. And thank you so much. It's Alastair Yates. He's chair of the ADHD Richmond support group. His 15-year-old son takes the medication for his ADHD. We're talking about Ritalin, all the types of medication like it. And the reason we're talking about it is because no less than the chief inspector of schools has accused parents of trying to medicate their children's hyperactivity away, which means that she doesn't really believe in it, believes that there are other things that could be done. And you've heard a parent who's going through it.